Hey guys, Pete Ramsey here, HVAC Greatness on behalf of Kelley McKay, the HVAC millionaire. Kelley, welcome to tonight's podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah. I was gonna say, welcome to what do we call this show, anyways, Pete? I don't even know.
Well, welcome to your life. Yeah, man. So I hope you've been having a good week. I've been watching your posts out there. You putting some good stuff out there. Some good content, man. I'm loving it. Loving it.
Good. Yeah. Can I talk about that just real quick?
Would you?
I saw a short video about, and it was somebody who's very prominent in our industry and very looked up to, and he made the comment, and he could have it could mean nothing. So I'm not trying to take it out of proportion. I know the guy has a good heart, and he does really great things in the industry. And who am I to even say anything? However,
here he comes.
he says, he says something like, well, if you don't even, if you don't have a brand when you first start a business, maybe you shouldn't be starting a business. And I thought, you know what, buddy, you're forgetting where you came from, because you didn't start with a brand. You didn't start with no fancy $20,000 brand. So anyhow, that really got under my skin. I thought, man, that's not the message that I will ever talk about. And it could have just been a mistake. And like I said, I'm not trying to, but man, it got under my skin.
Does that kind of stuff bother you? I'm just wondering.
A little bit, just because I feel like people lose touch with where they came from. And you got to think about, there's somebody out there who doesn't have the resources, but they're very resourceful, and they're going to make it happen, just like you did when you started.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to step on other people's dreams by saying, like, maybe you shouldn't even start it. If you don't have a nice fancy brand, like, you probably shouldn't even start business. No, screw that.
Life is a series of progressions and improvements, and we all have to start somewhere. And you and I actually talked about this before we hit recording. We started off as technicians, and you got to know where you come from. And I got a lot of stuff wrong in the beginning. I don't know about you. And branding was one of them, for sure.
I still get stuff wrong, Pete. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's through failures that the ultimate success comes through. I mean, you don't need this is what I love about you. And I know that you can appreciate about me back. We're not out there saying, look at us, we build this, did that, did the other. What makes us qualified to teach on this is if we've made all the mistakes, we've got all the cuts, we've got all the scars, we've been through this stuff. And, that's how you learn. We didn't have, like you said, podcasts. We didn't have these resources, even something like this, YouTube. We didn't have that. What we had was, maybe a few local chamber of commerce mentor possibilities, people that didn't even understand our industry. Or in my case, thank goodness that I had become a Train dealer, was hosting in our area, for those who would pay the money, a business consultant who was already an expert to teach us how to do things. And that's how Ron Smith came to be my first mentor. And I sat in his class, and buddy, it changed my world. So we need help, but we don't need the arrogance to come with it. That's for sure.
No, we do need help. And thankfully, I mean, how wonderful is it that there is so many resources out there for people to absorb and to learn from. So I know I've been absorbing that stuff for the last 10 years, as it became more and more into the forefront and available for people. Yeah. But man, like YouTube, I don't even remember YouTube being much of a thing when it came to, like, when I first started my business. It just wasn't much of a thing, and it just has blown up in popularity. And same with Facebook, even. I'm curious. I ought to look it up sometime, just see how many users were on Facebook in 2008 versus how many users are on there today.
Oh man,
I'm certain it's got to be, 10 times what it was back then. So
more than that. Yeah.
Groups wasn't even a thing on Facebook. That was not a thing. Like, so now anybody who's only been in business for, I don't know, 8 years or so, maybe 7, 8 years, like you had access to all that right away. A lot of information out there that you could just easily access, which, that's awesome, because hopefully you're skipping some of the challenges that I know me and Pete went through. And however, I see a lot of people out there still going through challenges.
Well,
So
they're their own worst enemies. And everybody is their own worst enemy. I think the one person that you're going to have to challenge and stand up to is yourself. If you're going to go to that next level. And you alluded to, and you were talking about before the recording, you said, really good service, it doesn't even really exist anymore. And we're seeing that. I mean, it started with the airlines. I don't know if you were much into flying. When you're in your business, you don't fly much, right? You're out there.
Right. No, I'm in my office or in a truck or on a roof somewhere.
Well, I sold my business in 2000. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember because I went to work first for American Standard briefly, and then I ended up working for Lennox for many years. And they would fly us around. And so we would go to, we'd have our national meetings, and we'd have dealer meetings. And most of the times it was a drive distance away, but a lot of times it was a flight. So one year it was Las Vegas, one year it was Dallas, Texas, one year it was LA. And so it was kind of cool to move around and see parts of the world. But yeah, we saw, I've been flying since I was a little boy because I'm the son of divorced parents. And I lived in North Carolina. My parents lived in Dallas, Texas. My dad, my dad and grandparents. And so every year I flew. And so I've watched the deterioration of service in the airline industry, and it just become down to these pricing wars, right? And I heard somebody say not too long ago, if anybody gets 5 stars, it's those guys, because they have to cut their costs, but yet they have to maintain these standards of safety. I mean, think about, do you want to fly the cheapest flight, right? Of safety and quality and just all of this stuff that comes into the responsibility of that type of work. But what was the point? The point was that service has just gone to nothing. Used to you could speak up and get good service. And now,
yeah, and let's clarify just a little bit, because I know that there's and just like and so I'll just kind of clear the air here. Like there's absolutely places you can go where the service is phenomenal. We all know that. However, think about just the majority of services, like just you hit a drive-through at Starbucks, or you go through the drive-through to grab a snack on your way to a meeting or something. Like, just think about some of that service. Think about the service you get if you're looking for something in a store, and not a fancy store. so I think of, like, when I think of excellent 5-star service, I think like fancy. Well, I'm not fancy. Like I don't do, like it's just not in my DNA. I don't think it'll ever be my DNA, no matter how much money I ever earn in my life. I'm simple. And so thinking about just the types of service that we see, it's not every single place, not every single business. But man, I just remember back in the day when you go through any drive-through for any reason, and people are just like, at least say thank you when you handed them money.
Oh yeah, now they don't even look at
like
you.
You're lucky to get a thank you.
They'll hand you the bag while they're talking to somebody inside. That's one.
And shut the door and not even say a word.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. I feel like it's everywhere. So it's like in Midwest Kansas, it's pretty obvious. Just put it that way. It may not be like that in every single region, just like all different markets are different, but it's that way here. And so, but not everywhere. But I still feel like, man, just a little bit of extra, something that you can put on top, of your service will make you stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
Being able to speak to your customer, like tell them, Pete, thank you so much for calling us. I know you could have called just anybody, but we really appreciate the opportunity to serve you today. Thank you so much. Like, nobody says that, So like, if you could just do something like that, I feel like, man, you're just gonna, but of course it's gotta be genuine. It doesn't have to be genuine. You really have to feel that. But I'm saying, that's what I'm trying to communicate to everybody, I guess, is to feel it, and then share that with the customer, and they'll feel you. And I know Pete's got a whole bunch to say about this. So
yeah. about 6 thoughts kind of came and went. But
yeah,
one of the things that I did kind of want to hang on to, and it's a few sentences back, was the difference in service that I have experienced. And one of the ones that I really, really miss was hardware stores, because there was a big company that came into our town. It was called Home Quarters. This is back before Home Depot and Lowe's. Lowe's was around, and they were coming in, and so we had this low price hardware stores. But there was a little hardware store in town. It was kind of out in the suburbs, and I would go in. These places you go in and you could barely move through the place because the inventory is just so stacked. And these guys would run over to you and they would like, what do you need help with? Well, I don't know. I'm going to run a drain line, or I'm going to run, electrical service, or fix a roof, or anything, and they would walk you through and help you. Well, you need this. Have you got this? You're going to need it. And they just understood everything. And it was like an education going to the hardware store. And that was all just kind of, it just went away. And I don't think a lot of people that are listening to this have ever experienced this. The closest franchise that came to it was Ace.
I was just going to tell you, the Ace, this is one exceptional store. It's not all the Aces, because I think they're like, it's like a franchise, but they're still privately owned or something.
Exactly.
The way they work. And so the one here in Augusta, the owner of that store, I'm telling you, and I don't see him too terribly often, but he's that guy. For one, he is that guy. So if he helps you, he is going to be, hey, did you think about this? Did you think about it? Okay, let's go on this aisle. Let's look over here. He's that guy. But their service is superior to any other store in the entire the little city of Augusta, with 10,000 people, probably most of Wichita.
Yeah.
So with 380,000 people, or 420, whatever we're out to now. So it's like, that's crazy that you picked that, and then you even said Ace, because
they're small.
This one Ace store is absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, they stand out.
I just wanted to throw a caveat. They're probably not the cheapest.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't look at prices when I go buy stuff like that.
Well, when you're looking at lumber,
if I need something, I got to go get it. So
you're looking at lumber and you're looking at cinder blocks, they don't have
the
space.
They definitely are more for lumber, I can tell you.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
But let's just say, hardware, like, hinges and, stuff like this. So, but what happened is the big mega companies came in and they've replaced all these small companies. And we've seen Walmart do this. We've seen, the grocery stores did this years ago. And this is kind of what's happened. And it's unfortunate. Small businesses are really in a very difficult position right now. And I think our industry is very fortunate that they've not successfully done this. They tried back when I was in business in the 90s. They call them consolidators. And what they would do is they would go in and they'd buy up several heating and air conditioning companies that were relatively successful, put them under a single brand, and try to manage that as a single entity. And they failed.
But then all the people left and it just crumbled and fell apart, I'm sure.
Yeah. And, and that kind of stuff continues to happen with the private equity investors today. And they're buying. And then ultimately there's a conflict in a business philosophy between the owner that they asked to stick around for a year and management, and then it comes to a head and they end up firing the owner. That inevitably, that's just what they do. And then what happens, it goes to, hell in a handbasket, as they say. But since service generally sucks, what does that mean to us, Kelley?
It means opportunity.
Hey, man, that's what I was looking for. It means opportunity.
It means there is such a tremendous opportunity that, like, I see it. You guys have seen it too. Some of the big companies, possibly in your area, who are doing a lot of volume, they're, especially during the hot summer, like they don't have. There might be a few employees that work there who really stand out, who are really great people, who do a great job. But the majority of them, you have an opportunity to really stand out yourself as a small company, to be different, to spend time with the customer, to do a thorough job, like all the things we've talked about multiple times on this podcast. So, but it's a huge opportunity, but you have to be different. You've got to stand out. Part of that is your branding. Yes. Like we started this episode off talking about, where, the branding is important. I'm not going to say it's not, it's huge, but should you not start a business just because you don't have that kind of capital to spend or to invest in a brand? No. The answer is no. If you've got ambition and heart and hunger, and you got a winning attitude, and you know your stuff, and you're good with people, you can do it. You can do it. You can get a long ways, even just with no. Please don't not have any stickers on your van to let people know who you are. But I'm just saying you could.
Yeah.
If you were that good, you could. So.
And they're out there. There's companies that have been in business for, 20, 30, 40 years, and they don't even advertise, and they're just backed up. But that's because of their service. But circling back around to the branding part, a brand by definition is what people say about you when you're not in the room. It's their opinion of you. And what this person, whoever it was, and I didn't see that post, so I don't know who you're talking about, and that's probably a good thing. I think what they were suggesting was that if you don't take control of what people are saying about you, then they're just going to say whatever, whatever their impressions are ultimately lead them to. And we can take control of that by positioning ourselves as something special. And I'll drop a name. One of the guys I work with, and he's in our mastermind group, he rebranded. His name is Mark, and Mark Portuesi. He's outside of Chicago, Illinois, and he worked with Kick Charge over there. What's his name? Antonelli, and came up with a really nice wrap. And he had like this bullseye. Instead of an arrow hitting the target, it was a wrench, and it's called On the Mark. And
I've seen him on social media before. I've noticed that his branding. So
what he did was he went in early on. He was very small. He didn't have a lot of money, and he went ahead and sucked up and made that investment. And he wrapped those vans, and he had tremendous success. But what I wanted to share was with a little story that was after the fact. We had in one of our mastermind groups another business owner who, I think he was in Michigan, and he was going to rebrand his vans and rewrap everything, which, that's an investment. You did that. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And Mark said, you better hold on. You better be ready. As soon as you change that, the phones are going to go off the hook. And that was his personal experience. So by raising your image, your brand, your perception to the people out there, if it's done professionally, and guys, don't cut corners on this. If it's done professionally, it's not only is it going to raise the amount of calls, the amount of attention that you're going to get, it's going to be out there advertising for you every day. I'm talking about the wraps now. Every day, every time you go through a neighborhood, it's going to be reminding people of who you are and hopefully what's special about you. So I just remember Mark over there, and Mark's a great guy. He's a young business owner. He can't be more than about 34, 35. And he's probably one of the smartest kids I've worked with.
Yeah.
He's really smart. He really gets it. And he's
Yeah.
just taking his stuff to the next level, big time. But yeah.
Yeah. I've got a couple of guys that blow my mind that are in our group too, that are just super sharp guys that are just, and they're just doing so well, so early in
Don't
the
you love
game.
that? Don't you love that?
So
I mean, don't
early
you?
in the game. Like I got one dude is like he's gonna, yeah, he did his first year in business. It wasn't even a full year. I think he started in April or June, maybe June. I can't remember exactly, but he did like 600,000 700,000 just in his first
Wow.
6 or 7 months in business. And then this year he's going to surpass $1 million. Like he's probably going to do closer to 1.5 is my guess. And then another guy is getting ready to, he just put an offer in on like a $200,000 shop, like 7,000 square foot shop.
Nice.
I'm just blown away. These guys are doing so good.
Yeah.
It's really cool to be a part of it. So I get that for sure. Like that's why we do it, right, Pete? Because it's
Absolutely.
that right there.
No, it's
It's
really
like
cool.
you don't have to like. It's not that these guys don't bust their tail. Like they're hard working dudes, but like that's okay. It's it's one thing to work hard. It's a whole nother thing when you to work hard for like 8 years till you just feel like you don't have anything left, versus working hard for 3 or 4 years, really hard to build this thing up as quickly as possible so you can step back. And one of the guys is that I just talked about. He's already stepped back, like, because he's started with no shop, no vehicles. Now he's got, I don't know, 4 or 5 vehicles. He's got a shop. His fiance quit her job, came to work for the business. The let's see, I don't know. They blow my mind, dude. It just blows my mind because I know I know what can happen when you have the right information. I'll just put it that way. And you work hard. These
Yeah.
guys have worked very hard for what they have,
Well,
but they had the right information and they're using it, and they use it in their business every day, and it just gets better results faster. So
yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah. The stars definitely have to align. And several things. Okay. The thing that I didn't do, and a lot of us just don't have any control over, is our demographics. Do I want to set up a business here? Do I want to set up a business over there? And if we do a little bit of research on that, we'll figure out, okay, what kind of business do we want to be? So if I want to be a premium level company, I probably need to find a premium level clientele and go do business over in that area, not where I happen to live. That was my mistake.
I made the same mistake.
But you mentioned again at the very beginning that service sucks, and or I quoted you from before the recording.
Yeah, I said it. Service does suck.
And so I think that a lot of us being technicians look at that as, well, my service doesn't. When I go in there, that equipment is popping and my customers love me. And they really feel like that is true. And from their perspective, it is true. And if you think that your customers love you because how friendly they are to you, and they really understand the value of what you bring, you may be incorrect. You may be reading into more than what's really going on. Kelley, how would you describe what we mean by service? I mean, we're making the equipment happy because we're good service technicians, but what does service mean to the homeowner themselves? How is that different? What are we really talking about when service sucks?
So I think as a society, I believe that at this point, we're incredibly spoiled. And it's just the new normal. It's just how it is. Like you can, with one touch of a button, you can order a $5,000 whatever and have it delivered to your house tomorrow morning. So there's no for one, there's the delayed gratification is like you used to at least have to get in your truck or your vehicle and drive to the store
right.
to go get it. Like you don't have to leave your house ever if you don't want to. You can be waited on hand and foot. If you have the money, you can have meals delivered to your door 4 times a day, whatever you want. So for one, I believe that there's a little bit of there's transparency now that didn't used to happen. You didn't have internet with all your parts listed of what was at, Johnstone or at Amsco Supply or whoever your supplier is. Like, you didn't have the access to go look at parts on Amazon. So you have to think of all the different dynamics that have changed since just in the last, I'm going to say 15 years, drastically changed. And on top of that, every single year from 2008, when I sold equipment, all the way up until today, every single year, we just about for every single supply house, we had price increases. January, February, somewhere around there, you're getting a price increase. Well, now we've had multiple price increases just in 1 year. So I just think of all these different dynamics that have changed. The transparency, people can go find stuff online. I talked to an owner today. He was talking about how the customer wanted to know, what is your cost on the equipment versus, and what are you charging me to put it in? Because I'm sure he can go online and find that same furnace. It's not going to include installation, but it's going to give him what he's going to perceive as an idea of what he's being charged versus what he perceives as buying it for. So these are all like, some of these things are price structure things, as far as like what does the customer get for what they pay for. So, and back to being spoiled, like everything, the normal, like if something breaks and you call somebody to come to your house to fix it, they just expect you to fix it. That's already expected. So there's no value created there. Even if you were a really good technician and, 9 out of 10 technicians who came to look at this same problem wouldn't have found it or fixed it as fast as you. You see the value in that as a technician. They don't. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're here. You're here to fix the unit. That's what I called you for.
Yeah.
So in order to go above and beyond that, there has to be something else. Otherwise, there is no value created because that's what they expect. So to answer your question without being pre-prepared or anything for it, that's what comes to my mind is we have to go above and beyond. And that term just gets thrown around very loosely.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be very specific. We have to think. I always say, if you were to step up, like in as far as like positions, I don't even know how to call it. Like, just if you're the higher you climb on the ladder on this, if you just to break this down into 4 steps, as you climb this, you make more money. First, you're maybe working with your hands, like you're using your muscles. Then you are managing. So now you've got to learn some communication skills, some people skills. Chances are in a manager position, you're going to climb the ranks a little bit. You're going to make a little bit more money. Next thing is speaking, getting better at speaking, communicating, your message. And then at the top of this very short, high level overview would be thinking. Thinking is the highest paid skill there is. So if you can sit down and just think about what could make us different, how can we communicate what we do differently? How can we think about what we do differently? How can we package things differently? How can we reinvent ourselves? I think if you think about those things, and I don't have the answers to those, by the way. I'm not like saying, and it's easy for me to sit here and say, how could you do things differently? But this is the job for the owner. It's you. You know you better than anyone else. You know the type of service you deliver. You know your attitude. You know what you want your brand to represent and stand for. You know all these things. You have your core values.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't defined them yet, you know what they are. So how do you communicate that to the customer to make yourself stand apart from anyone else? Because we can't just be like everybody else and come out and just fix the thing, because there's no value in that. That's part of the reason why people get upset when the price is what we have to charge in order just to make a living and earn a profit in our business. But the value is not there for the customer. So that's all I have. Yeah. So I want to hear what you have to say about this.
No, that's great stuff, man. So I go back to the hardware store, the little one that was out in our small town, in that experience versus going over there and standing at the big store and looking down the hallway and trying to get somebody to come over and help me, and they knew less than I do. And I think that maybe for most of the listeners here, you guys probably know your way around a hardware store better than the employees. Okay. But by contrast, one time I bought a new camera because of this kind of stuff, and I wanted to get a special lens. And so we went over to a specialized camera shop, and they had this old guy in there, and he would ask questions. What kind of camera do you have? Do you have this? How are you going to use it? And he's, well, you could do this. And then he starts talking about all this stuff. And I'm like, I didn't know this stuff. And I just thought I wanted to buy this lens and be done with it. But there were all these other variables that he would bring up because of his experience. And he had a way about communicating that he wasn't condescending. He wasn't like he knew everything and I was a dummy. He kind of made me feel like, I was the hero and he was just guiding me, and what are you trying to, you definitely, if you want this impact, you want to do this. And, and I ended up buying a tripod from him and a 50 millimeter lens that I needed because of that clear image with the blurred background combo. It was kind of cool. So that was an example for me with my mindset. I'm more of looking at it from a technical standpoint, but my wife, by comparison, she would appreciate, like, you coming out to her house and you're very polite. You're putting your shoe covers on and you're asking permission to go in different areas, and you're involving her, and you're the drop cloths, cleaning up, vacuuming, explaining, and asking questions. Is there anything else that you need help with? Yeah. Hey, I got my ladder out. Is there anything you want to get off any high shelves or any light bulbs changed? Just little things that make it personable. And for her, it's a different thing.
What I'm hearing?
What are you hearing?
You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing that's words of affirmation. That's how she feels appreciated and like she's being taken care of, is you're asking her question, you're involving. And then for you, I'm hearing acts of service, which is, here, let me show it, like, we're going to do this project together.
I want to know what I don't know, but I don't want you to I don't want you to make me feel like a dumbass because I don't know it. I don't know this stuff, but don't belittle me. Don't talk down to me,
Yeah.
And that was the guy that this had, but there's other pieces too, Kelley. For example, I had a customer that they would call me out and pay. This was my first civilian job in Dallas, Texas, to change their light bulbs, and I'm like, why me? And he says, well, you handle you handle this other stuff, and we like you, so we just, and it started because they had a wasp nest inside their package unit. I hate wasps. And I wouldn't go up there, and he brought me a beekeeper's hat with the net. I'm serious. And I had to go out there and kill the wasp nest and everything else. But they just loved that, and it just turned into this relationship. Well, service right now, is definitely on the decline. But I think if we had to come around to a catch-all descriptor, it would be the customer experience. Don't you? It's not the equipment
Yeah.
experience, the customer experience.
No.
The equipment already knows you, know your stuff, but
Yeah.
the customers interpret quality by a different metric. You know, they're looking at stuff like how polite you are, how clean you are, you know, how
Yeah.
professional you behave. And so if you look professional, talk professional, and take and just put drop costs and stuff, well, in their mind, the work that they're doing is superior. It's technically better.
Yes.
That's the way they process. So that part of it
The
is
way we all process stuff,
right.
when you really think about it,
But it's counterintuitive for us as technicians. My customers know me, they love me, they know I do a great job. But in reality, they just are buying into your enthusiasm. Sales is a transfer of enthusiasm, right?
and
So
possibly your certainty. If you know your stuff, they're buying
certainty,
into your certainty. So
exactly.
yeah,
But unfortunately, that works for your competition, and they're absolutely certain they're doing a great job with beer can cold, and they're just not doing a good job.
right.
But they think they are, and a lot of they have their own following, and so that's part of it. But this kind of stuff will take care of itself over a period of time if you do really good work. But if you offer quality service, high end service, and this is who you are as the business owner because you value this. Now you have to create a strategy so that your team will continue to provide this even in your absence, because they're not owners. They have to be motivated as well. And maybe that motivation comes from certain key characteristics that are fundamentally they have in common with you, including your core values. We're just happy
Yeah,
people and we like what we're doing, and therefore we're happy. But if I'm miserable and I hate people, but I work on equipment, and it's going to come through.
absolutely. So this goes back to, because I've been kind of fascinated with this, because I know that I made a lot of mistakes in my business. There's no question. I don't ever pretend I didn't. I made a lot of mistakes, but I always did the best I could, and I was striving to do good. Like, I wanted to do good. It meant a lot to me to do good, in the way I led, in the way our business operated, in the environment that was created in the workplace. I wanted all of those things to be as best as I could.
Sure.
And so I've been, I feel like somehow I missed the mark at times, different times. And you just have a lot of time to reflect after you sell a business. Yeah, I know you did a lot of reflection yourself. I'm certain of it. For the first couple of years, you reflected about, like, well, what if I would have done this? What if I could have done that?
I sure did.
Not that I don't have any regrets or anything, because I always did the best I could. But I've been obsessed with, like, learning more and more and more about business, just because it's what does it for me. But so anyhow, the reason I said what I said when you were talking about how some people's acts of service, some people words of affirmation, is because I just got certified today in the 5 languages. It's called the 5 languages of appreciation at work. So I'm actually gonna be a facilitator of those, and I will give some trainings here in the very near future. I'll get a facilitator's kit in the mail. It's all delivered online, or I could do it in person. But anyhow, it's part of the reasons I've searched for this stuff, is because I'm still fascinated. I want to know, like, what makes people tick. How can you completely change a culture from something that's just people don't feel great about to something they can really enjoy coming to work for? You know what I mean? Not that we had a horrible culture by any means. I don't feel like we ever did, but could it have been better? Yes. And I've got a good friend that has a phenomenal culture. And so, just to share just a couple of little tiny snippets that I've learned, is that I always thought it was my job. We have external customers, which are customers that we go fix their heating and air conditioning system. And then we have our internal customers, where that's your employees, that's your colleagues, your coworkers, your teammates. And I always thought that the leader's job, or somebody who's put in that position to lead or manage, It was their job to make sure those coworkers are taken care of, to make sure that they were being appreciated, feel appreciated, and, you know, had support, the support they needed. And what I've learned is that it's not, some people don't even want your time or you know, not everybody wants words of affirmation, like telling you that you did a good job from the boss. Sometimes they just want it from their coworkers. Sometimes and so when you build a culture that has the coworkers understanding, because what happens, what I've learned with this whole experience of doing this deal is that you can miss the mark by having a group meeting and saying, Pete, hey, let's everybody give a round of applause for Pete. He sold, 15 maintenance agreements this month. Good job, Pete. Well, that's words of affirmation. I'm telling you, good job, but I may miss the mark. That may not be important to you. Words of affirmation might be your language of appreciation that you want, but I may have done it the wrong way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So understanding how people want to be appreciated is part of it, but it's also part of it for everybody on the team, because what they found with research is that there are sometimes you want to know when you work with somebody, your buddy comes to work, you're riding together today, think it's going to be a great day. Well, they're having a bad day for some reason. And you want to know how you can pick them up. How can I bring their spirits up to have a better day? Well, if you know how they like to be appreciated specifically, then you can do those things to make that person feel appreciated, to feel better about themselves. So it's hard to explain like this without like taking you through the training, but it's good. So
yeah, I can speak to that
sense.
first. First of all, congratulations on your certification. I think that's awesome.
Thanks.
You're taking the time and investing in yourself, and I think we all need to be doing that. But fundamentally, what you guys should be hearing is, man, do I really need to hear all that? I mean, I just want to run a business. Well, it's kind of weird, but the very thing that you downplay and you just want to move past may be the difference in taking you to that next level. And so, as a business owner, you're going to have to bring in all these new skill sets and insights and understandings, and there's nothing better than to learn from people who have been schooled on it or maybe had the firsthand experience. But I think fundamentally, I remember reading The 1 Minute Manager back in the 80s, and it was said something to the effect of, there's nothing any more unfair than to treat unequals equally. And I remember reading into that, but different people are motivated by different things. And you may sit there and praise one person, and it turns around and turns them into a prima donna. Well, the boss is praising me, I'm important, and it actually works against you of all things. Or there was one
that's
guy
happened to me multiple times.
Right. And so there was one guy I used to work with. He was the head of the sheet metal shop in Dallas, Texas, and he hated getting all that attention. And the boss called him, said, the head of the sheet metal shop, and his face turned red, and he did not want that. He's fine one-on-one, but not in front of groups. And so
exactly, you just said it. Yep. Some people, that's how they want to be appreciated, or that's how they want praise, is one-on-one. Some of them don't want to be acknowledged in front of a group. Some people want the group, they don't want one-on-one. It's all about finding out how
it's part of, it's like being a part of something as opposed to being patronized, maybe.
Yes.
I just like being here. You don't need to blow wind up my skirt. I get it. This business is work, whatever. But some people do need that encouragement to get them to that point. And so you kind of have to have it's being a business owner is being a bit of a daddy, right? You've always got
everybody wants appreciation. That's the bottom line. And that's, so if somebody says, oh yeah, I don't need
what's wrong, man? You got ants in your pants.
Some clip broke on this thing that was holding it up. But anyhow, so somebody might say, I don't like, I don't need all that. You don't need to tell me I'm doing a good job, blah, blah, blah. Well, but then they actually light up when
Oh
you
yeah.
just spend a little bit of quality time with them. And then they start telling you about, look at this, look at what we did on this project and blah, blah, blah. And they just start lighting up. Well, that is still showing appreciation to that person. It's just a different form. And so it's about learning the different forms of appreciation that people want, and then making sure that that's what they get. That way it hits the mark. It's on the mark, right? So it's
On
on
the
the
mark.
mark instead
Yeah.
of
Way to go,
missing the
Mark.
target 100%. So anyhow,
I
it
remember just
fascinated me. So
real
that's
quick
why,
story. I mean, everybody's buttons are a little bit different, but I remember
yeah,
one. This has just always stuck with me. I had started a new job. It was actually my very last job before I started my business. And I went to work it was a refrigeration company. So they had set a condenser that was one of those condensers where it was coils and fans only. And the compressor was inside of a mechanical room. And we were running
yeah,
these 1.25 inch, 1 3/8, big discharge, and then, still big liquid lines. But we're running all these discharge lines. And so everything had to come in. You had the 45s and this, that, and the other. And so I'm cutting and brazing and just putting all this stuff in. And the owner came out. His name was Doyle Criswell. And man, I hope he's still out there kicking, but just a long time ago. And he looked at that and he said, "That's good work." I said, "Thanks, boss." I'm just keep going. He goes, "No, no, no. I'm critical as hell, and that's good work." And he wanted me to know that he's a perfectionist, and he's sitting there and he's putting a tape measure on there, and he says everything's level and it's cut just right. Look how these turns just go together, and I'm playing it down, but that made my day. In fact, I to
yeah, I'm telling
day,
you.
whatever it is, 35 years later, I'm still remembering that.
Yeah.
And anyway,
So you take this assessment and it tells you your primary language that you like to be appreciated in.
okay,
And then it tells you your secondary language, because if you can take two languages, combine them, it
yeah,
has a bigger impact with the person, with
yeah,
any
yeah,
individual.
I get that.
And then
Yeah,
it tells you, because here's another thing, is that we have blind spots. And the blind spots are when, let's say, words of affirmation, just that's not for Pete,
right,
but it is for Kelley.
right.
And because it's not for Pete, he thinks that's not going to do any good. So you tend to ignore the very thing that would make me feel appreciated because you don't see it that way.
Yeah,
So that's the brilliance in this whole thing.
yeah. That's called projection. We do that with our customers as well. We just project our own values on it. That's like, these employees that you have. Oh, I'm going to save you a bunch of money. The boss will try to sell you a new system, but I'm going to fix, because they're projecting their values of,
Yeah.
let's call it, financial scarcity, because they're making, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, and you're talking to somebody who makes, six figures, times two, right? And they don't care about that. They have a different mindset. And so
Yeah.
projecting our values and understanding and stuff on the other people is very common. We assume they think like we do, but they don't have the same background, experience, education, interest, or needs. And so we do have to learn how to shut up and say, this is, these are the options that are available to you. What do you think you would be interested in? And that's how you sell, by the way. You don't sell, you consult.
Yeah. Yeah. You just be a professional. That's what I call it. So you even called it that earlier. Just being a professional, having a clean truck, having a clean uniform, or looking presentable, the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you um communicate, towards your customers, all makes a
Yep.
big
And
difference.
and
It's subconscious. Like they don't even, you do it too. Like even you perceive somebody as being professional or not professional.
sure, 93% of all communication is nonverbal. So
Yep.
all that other stuff matters.
You bet.
Well, Kelley, we said we're going to shorten these,
Yeah.
try to keep it to 45 minutes. I think we've passed that.
A
Did
little
you have
bit.
anything else to kind of bring all this together for those who are listening? Maybe an extra little nugget that you can throw in there. What are you thinking?
half of the people on your team, any team, want words of affirmation is their number one language that they like to be appreciated in. So I'll say that, but it also means 50% of your team, that is not what they want. So I'll leave it at that. And then back to customer service and everything that we talked about today. I hope you guys will take this to heart. I say that all the time, but please listen, do something with it. Use it, because you can stand apart. I don't care who you are. You're unique in your own way. So how can we bring that uniqueness to the surface in a way that, doesn't get weird? Like, I'm not telling you to be weird, but I'm telling you to be unique in your own way that can be of value to your customer. So,
yeah. And people never resent you for being too friendly or too good. They resent you for the opposite. And so,
and it costs nothing. Those two things cost nothing.
Yeah, just a little effort on your part. But maybe here's a tip. Inside of every scrawled face and browed or whatever the expressions are, serious face that your customer may have, behind those faces are a vulnerable child, if you will, of a person who is at a total disadvantage in your presence. And they're trying to be, be a certain way. But if you'll just be kind to that inner person and smile and ignore the face, explain things, slow down. Are you happy? Did we take care of everything for you today? Is there anything else I can do for you? And look, Pat, try not to look at the hard face, I'm an engineer. I know, they're just human beings, and they're at a disadvantage, and they don't want to be any more vulnerable than they already are. So they'll project these type of things. Ignore it. Talk to that inner person and treat them like, is there somebody you actually care about? Maybe a younger version of the person you're looking at. Try it. See if that works.
Okay, so I have to add one thing here. Because
the Kelley caveats.
There is a show, and I'm hardly ever on TikTok, but I got on there. Some probably somebody shared something with me, and I wound up on TikTok. And then this anyhow, this show, it's called Seatbelt Psychic, right? And this guy is supposedly, it's hard to believe reality TV shows, but he's supposedly just picking up a random stranger, and then he gets a reading from somebody who passed away, and he starts sharing some things. And what I realized about that, because I watched a couple of episodes, because it's pretty intriguing to watch if it's real. And here's the thing is, any single person that got in his vehicle, if he said the right thing, they were 5 seconds away from tears.
Isn't that crazy?
And that really brings like the human connection into everything. It's immediately what I thought is like, my God, like they're just people. Like everybody that you're dealing with, any customers, everybody you pass, no matter how tough they are or if they're acting like a jerk or if they're friendly, they could be seconds away from tears. They're just people. They have feelings and emotions, and so yeah.
High technology, isolation. What do you call this? Not confrontation, but positioning of battle between the customer and the salesperson. All these dynamics. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just human beings, and they've had, you don't know what they've been through, and sometimes just an act of kindness is really all. If you'll just hold your state, this is a psychological term, hold your state, and I'm here to help that inner child, that innocent person, and speak to that person and let them be as gruff as they want. That's just who you are. It may not be acknowledged in the present, but is always appreciated after the fact. So Just be good. Don't service that customer as if you're looking to your grandmother and servicing her, maybe,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and the service part will take care of itself. And how do you teach that to your team? Well, that's another episode coming up another time. So anyway, so much for 45 minutes. We still hit our hour, but
Yeah.
it was worth it. But great job, Kelley McKay, Mr. Certified or Certifiable.
Certifiable. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to, man, it's mainly just because I want to, I'm intrigued by it, but I also want to help other people who, not make the mistakes I made. It all goes back to that, man. That's half the battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't make the same mistakes.
And manning up and doing the stuff that you don't feel like doing. And that's where the success is from. You're going to have to follow a new regiment, one you're not comfortable with, but that's how we grow. It means manning
Get
up,
uncomfortable.
manning up, or whatever it is these days.
Do the unfamiliar.
Do the unfamiliar. Enlarge. Take who you are. That's not me, and enlarge it. Keep adding stuff to it until who you are is if it's massive, awesome person. Cool. Well, great job, Kelley. And on behalf of Mr. Kelley McKay, the HVAC millionaire, my name is Pete Ramsey, HVAC Greatness. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to both of our channels and follow us, because he's got content over on his channel that I don't have, and vice versa. And it's all about helping each other. Cool. See you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
See you guys.